Meowdy everyone, it is I, Fable. This is my third time trying to record this. The first time is because I didn't have the right audio. The second time is because I was rudely interrupted by my mother. Anyway, yes, today, hey everybody, we're actually learning more about some 40k stuff. Six rare and horrifying Xenos. I recognize one. This one, on the other hand, is that an enslaver? Ooh, let's learn.
In Warhammer 40k, there are dozens of iconic Xenos, most of which are represented as factions on the setting's main stage. The Orcs, Eldar, Necrons, Tyranids, Tau, and the Leagues of Votan. And if you dig only a little bit deeper, there's even bounties of sub-factions to these factions. Drakari, Inari, Harlequins, Genestealers, and Kroot. But what we're going to cover today goes far deeper. To look at 6 predominantly unknown Xenos, or at least not known by the masses. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
I don't want.
Hope to have simply been myth. Enslavers are possibly the most dangerous Xenos we're going to
So I was right, it was an enslaver.
talk about today. So dangerous are these aliens
God,
that
I was
some have
right.
theorized that these creatures were one of the main factions for the Age of Strife, the collapse of humanity's first galactic empire. Regardless, enslavers are terrifying creatures. We hesitate to call them
Oh my god, I know they're supposed to be enslavers, but that is an elder braid, and those are mind flayers if I've ever seen them.
aliens as they're born of the warp.
I love
And
it
yet,
though, don't get me wrong.
they aren't demons. They may be native inhabitants of the Immaterium, a thing that was never meant to even be conceived by us, but one that was awoken when the Sea of Souls was engulfed by chaos. It's very similar to how the Imperium first understood demons. In the opening days of the Horus Heresy, aliens from another dimension, enslavers usually enter our reality by latching onto the mind of a psyker and using it to rip a hole through the universe. The psyker's mind and body are twisted into a portal, through which the enslavers swarm. Less common is enslavers inhabiting space hulks. As the great amalgamations of lost ships drift in and out of the warp, enslavers slink inside, piggybacking onto the hulks into our reality. Whole worlds have fallen to the enslavers, their populations becoming drunk, stumbling, and muttering. This is a
Damn,
gradual
that's
process.
horrifying.
Enslavers have a limited range with their mind control powers, meaning they can only slowly overtake a population. Yet once you're under their power, you're bound to them forever. We even have a description from a survivor of what it feels like
Hold on. Oh man. Oh well.
to have their mind possessed by an enslaver. They likened it to a pale, bright, yet dim light filling their body, their mind agonized as though engulfed in fire. The goals of the enslavers, much like the beings themselves, are incomprehensible. We have no idea why they continue to invade our galaxy.
If they're anything as I imagine them to be, which is like an eldritch abomination, then we'll never fully understand what they want. They probably just want to feed off of us. How or why? They're probably just really primitive creatures that want to feed off of us, or they're incredibly intelligent and they still just want to feed off of us.
They appear to feed on people, unmaking them, seeming to do so by breaking apart their very essence. Whatever their reasons, the Imperium needs to uncover them, as enslaver plagues can be devastating. An enslaver plague is when multiple worlds in a sector begin to have enslavers emerge upon them. Needless to say, this can be utterly devastating for the Imperium. Multiple worlds can silently fall, their populations unraveling and leaving no trace of what's happened. It's worth noting that we know that the enslavers are not aligned with chaos. During the Arcs of Omen, as Abaddon and Vashtor sought out the key fragments for their profane device, one of their space hulks was attacked by enslavers. We know the enslavers didn't win the conflict, but they did heavily damage the Ark. Why they attacked is unknown. Most likely the key fragment being looked for was on a world the enslavers were feeding on. Regardless, the
Wait. The enslavers are still around? I thought they were all killed off. I didn't know that they... Holy crap, I learned something new today. That's scary, actually.
enslavers are one of the most insidious threats the Imperium, nay, the galaxy faces. Just pray one does not attach itself to your mind. Found primarily in the Cronus Expanse, an area of space just past Imperial borders, the Rak Gol are probably the biggest
This is supposed to be a rat ghoul, because I swear to God.
bunch of alien pirates in the galaxy. The Rakghoul come in many forms, as they seem to seek out warp and radiation mutations. That being
Jesus.
said, they do have a common form, standing on average about 2.6 meters tall. Their bodies are like giant salamanders, with 8 limbs that can shift around their body at a whim, allowing them to go from a rampaging monstrosity raised up on 4 legs to something far more bestial. Imagine running for your life from this eyeless horror that's just
I kinda
busted
don't want
into your
to,
ship,
actually.
only to watch its limbs slide about its own body as it drops onto all 8 limbs and clambers after you, like No-Face from Spirited Away.
Ew.
No better word suits these nightmares than terrifying. They hack off their limbs to replace them with giant blades and weapons.
Holy
Their whole
crap.
purpose in this galaxy seems to be to raid and pillage. They are truly monstrous, yet they do have a culture of sorts. Sadly though, this lore is deeply obscured to us by the Imperium's own biases. The Mechanicus Biologus has determined that the Rakghoul have no culture and aren't able to even form simplistic tribal groups. Yet at the same time, the Mechanicus acknowledges they have a caste system. So peeling back the Imperium's arrogance for a moment, Rakghoul
Imperial.
culture seems to be based on augmentation and hunting ability. Rakghoul are pack hunters. Their pack is essentially their whole ship. The lowest rank in the pack are those who haven't ever been in battle. After being trained, these Rakghoul, known as Unblooded, will be taken into battle under the supervision of what is known as a Clutch Master. Those who survived are now blooded and become known as Marauders.
Wait, blooded, unblooded. Oh my god, are they supposed to be based off the Yautja from freaking Alien, like from the Predator movies? Jesus.
Clutch Masters are lieutenants of the Rakghoul, often the leaders of smaller ships and squads of marauders. Above them are the Brood Masters, easily identifiable by their masses of augmentations. And finally, at the peak of the Rakghoul society, we have the Abominations.
Ugh.
Monstrously large Rakghoul bristling with augmentations and decorations. These are the
Horrifying,
captains
dude.
of capital Rakghoul ships, and the leaders of entire packs. Outside of this regular hierarchy are the Techno-Shamans, Rakghoul Psychers, obsessed with hunting down technology of the Uvath, who we will discuss shortly. As you can probably tell,
Oh.
the Rakghoul are fearsome and brutal raiders, who employ simple but extremely brutal weapons, favoring irradiated blades, rapid-firing flechette guns, and handheld atomic cannons. Along with this, they trade with
Jesus.
other powerful Xenos like the Zygo. The Zygo are a race of Xenos we know practically nothing about, except that they've held off the Imperium's assaults for over 500 years.
That's
So
not
as you can
easy,
imagine,
but-
the Rakghoul
If they were able to hold off the Imperium for 500 years, that's not good. That's insane.
working with them is bad news for the Imperium. Frankly, it seems the Mechanicus and the Imperium at large are deliberately ignorant of the Rakghoul threat. Rogue traders and the Ordo Xenos do their best, but these Xeno are simply too tough to be taken out by what little forces defend the outskirts of the Imperium. This combined with the Rakghoul's strange powers to avoid detection and any form of prescience, such as the Emperor's Tarot, makes their raiding ships practically impossible to track down. Okay, tinfoil hat time, people. It is strongly suggested that the Rakghoul are a biomechanical lifeform created by the Uvath. The Uvath were a warp-worshipping Xenos race who were wiped out in M39 by a random Imperial crusade.
Are you
They were
sure?
renowned for their biomechanical constructs. The Rakghoul seem to be the last weapon created by these Xenos to forever plague the Imperium of man. Yet they seem incomplete. With their techno-shamans' focus on finding lost Uvath technology, we posit that they are missing something. One last piece to unlock their true destructive potential.
Oh, God.
Regardless of whether this theory is true or not, those who have survived the absolute horror of a Rakghoul raid know that should these aliens ever find what they're looking for, know that a new age of strife may engulf the galaxy with the Rakghoul at its helm. If you've ever watched the anime Parasite the Maxime, then this friendly little creature is going to look pretty familiar. The Brule Parasite has to be hands down one of the worst Xenos ever discovered by
that
the
design
Imperium
is
of Man.
horrifying.
These abominations prey exclusively on sentient creatures, usually entering through their eyes, nose, or mouth. They burrow into the cranium of their host, wrapping their spiked tentacles tightly around the victim's brain, where they then begin to feed directly on the host's nutrients and memories. Yes, their memories, which the parasite has full access to. Not only that, but this parasite can fully control the host's body. Effectively, these parasites become their host, controlling them like puppeteers, with jerky movements and causing their victims to have sunken eyes and lips. What is possibly the most disturbing fact about the Brule parasites is what they do after they've secured a host. If the host is a non-sentient, they will simply use the beast to get to a center of civilization. Once they've secured a sentient host, they'll start to build a close family group to avoid detection. Have a think for a moment about what this really means.
That's
Brawl
horrifying.
parasites take over entire families. They take over entire communities. Streets of once close neighbors jerkily stepping around. Their bodies emancipating as the brawl parasites gorge themselves on their minds. The worst part is that the hosts are still alive in there. Imagine watching from behind your eyes as something else controls your movements and infests your loved ones with the same curse. And in case you were wondering, yes, a brawl parasite can infest and take over a space marine.
Wow.
Our next alien is best introduced to you by a story. The Imperium had been hunting a space hulk known as the Charnel Spectre. Upon tracking it down, Inquisitor Malice Dice, a Deathwatch kill team, and Malice's personal warband boarded, searching for lost inquisitorial relics. Slowly, they realized things were hunting them. Glimpses of clawed monsters in the dark. The Ordo Xenos warriors immediately assumed they were being stalked by gene stealers, till suddenly one of their acolytes went mad and gunned down 2 others before the Deathwatch finished off the traitor. Then the Xenos beasts came, all of them a whirl of teeth and claws. This continued on for a while, the Ordo Xenos forces venturing deeper and deeper. More acolytes turn mad, and Astartes fall to waves of Xenos creatures. Inquisitor Malice ventures a theory. Lacrimoles, creatures from Imperial myth, shapeshifters long thought to be extinct. The theory only spread paranoia in the group. Infighting starts to break out, and by the end there's only 3 Deathwatch Astartes and the Inquisitor left. The Astartes don't believe the Inquisitor is still human, they think he's one of the aliens. In fact, Malice is only saved from the Astartes by a wave of aliens attacking them, slipping away in the ensuing firefight. Malice eventually becoming the only survivor of the expedition. Back in the Imperium, his claims of the Lacrimoles saw him laughed out of the Inquisition. He spent his days gibbering to himself about claw monsters in the dark before finally dying a broken shell. Yet, the Deathwatch has a theory, put forward by librarian Codicia Tylon, that of hidden empires. Creatures like the Lacrimole who disappear from Imperial records only to reappear. How do we know that whole worlds haven't fallen to these Xenos? What lurks on the edge of space?
Dude, this is what I love. This is the kind of stuff I love. This kind of horror. This kind of stuff. I love it because it makes you think. It makes you realize how small we are in the greater galaxy. Oh, dude, I love it.
In unknown dark, gnawing at the edge of our galaxy. How do we know that the person next to us isn't a lacrimole? This is, of course, a silly idea, clearly an overly paranoid Deathwatch librarian, staring too long into the inky blackness of space. We all know there are no lacrimoles in the Imperium. Or do we?
Nice.
The Slort, also known as the Maggot Men, Dream Eaters, or Carrion Lords, are some of the most disgusting aliens in the galaxy.
Love them.
They're essentially a writhing mass of sentient, maggot-like creatures who form a sort of hive mind. One of these worms alone is not sentient, but get enough of them together and you have a Slort. The more maggots that comprise a Slort, the larger it is. Some of these worms...
I could be wrong, and I'm pretty sure he's gonna correct me, but the slot, however you say them, I'm pretty sure I'm spraying a bad word right now. The slot, aren't these the ones that can aid you just by touching you? Could be wrong.
Monstrosities reaching as tall as 3 meters high. If a 30-meter tall pile of maggots in the shape of a man wasn't terrifying enough for you, let's talk about Slort's technology. The Slort might even be the single most advanced species in the galaxy. Though their technology is unnatural to say the least, all of it emits an eerily false light. The energies unleashed by these weapons can render even the greatest war machines to dust. Their armor, appearing as nothing more than simple rags, can deflect even the strongest projectiles and render the wearer completely invisible in the blink of an eye. Though vilest of Slort creations is the Vassal Warrior Construct, a writhing mass of fungal flesh, bone, claws, and metal. Wielding the destructive weapons of the Slort, these creatures march to the will of their masters, seeming to radiate an aura of disgust and horror to humans. These pillars of flesh are capped by a myriad of swirling hooked tendrils, and a gaping garbage disposal like maw. Perhaps the most terrifying aspect of these constructs is their ability to irradiate the necrotic energies of the Slort, allowing them to disintegrate hordes of men. Look, we cannot get across how terrifying these things are. The warrior constructs are not the only constructs available to the Slort, as they may make a large variety to act as laborers and spies. The Imperium and the Slort have only ever had one open conflict, and we know very little about it, save that it was between the Storm Warden's chapter and the Slort. and that the Storm Wardens, one of the most stoic chapters to have ever been created, were utterly harrowed by the experience. And if you're
Damn.
wondering why the Slaught skulk in the dark, the answer is very simple. They're not yet ready for war. They grow more constructs, they multiply in numbers, all in the shadow of the Empire of Man. The Maggot Men are waiting, and they're growing strong. Only really the Death Watch and the Ordo Xenos stand against this threat, and when the time comes for open war, the Imperium will be subject to horrors beyond mortal comprehension. And finally, Terra Squirrels are for all intents and
Terra
purposes
squirrels?
flying
What?
squirrels. They're small, fur-covered rodents that glide from tree to tree to tree on flaps of skin. Cute, right?
What?
Well, congratulations, because you've just had your throat ripped out and half of your ribcage devoured. The Terra Squirrels are killer flying squirrels.
I can't.
With powerful, tiny limbs and
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I can't. What?
giant fangs. They're premier ambush predators who effectively pretend to be prey till they get the opportunity to strike. It's worth noting, though, that apparently these Xenos are quite delicious when cooked with a pinch of salt. And of course, these little buggers are actually a reference to the deadly rabbit from Monty Python.
They are. That made sense.
Well, that's it for now. Do let us know in the comments which of these Xenos you think would...
Wait, if they're a reference to the rabbit from Monty Python, does that mean the only way to get rid of them is with the holy hand grenade?
honestly be the greatest threat to the Imperium if they were to acquire the power they seek out so covetously. Perhaps the only reason they haven't reached said power is because they're getting in each other's way. During the Great Crusade, humanity went door to door, annihilating most of the galaxy's myriad of Xenos. So it's worth remembering that above all else, these Xenos are survivors. See you next time.
Alright, thank you, bud. Alright, everyone, if you like this kind of content, please do like and subscribe. Oops. What's this?
Behind every paragraph and reference in these videos, there's a mountain of research, editing, and more than a few burnt-out cogitators. That's where our patrons come in. With
Alright. Anyway, I love you all. I'll see you all later, guys. Remember, I'm doing a donor thought. If you guys want to support me in any way, shape, or form, I'll leave a link in the description. Make sure to check out Stardy's Anonymous. He's a lovely soul. Give him a like and subscribe too, guys. He do amazing work. If it wasn't for him, we wouldn't be able to learn a lot about Warhammer and stuff like that. So anyway, love you all. Remember, like, comment, and subscribe. Tell me what you think. Freaking help support me if you want to. I really could use the help right now. I'm in a really weird place lately, mentally. Anyway, bye.